We are counting down the top 10 cheap blue water boats that are shockingly capable of crossing oceans. From overlooked classics built like tanks to unsung legends more affordable than you would ever expect, each spot on this list proves you do not need a massive bank account or a brand new hull to chase real offshore adventure. Expect sturdy full-keel cruisers, hand-laid laminates, and stories of retirees who refuse to let high prices kill the dream. Which boat delivers the most seaworthiness per dollar, and which unexpected giant killer claims the #1 spot? Let's begin the countdown, starting with number 10. Westsail 32. Few names spark as much debate or quiet respect at the marina. Launched in 1974 and built through 1988, this 32-foot cutter earned its reputation not by speed, but by sheer determination and toughness. Weighing in at a hefty 16,000 to 18,000 pounds, with a full keel and a hull thick enough to shrug off a bad decision, the Westsail 32 is the boat that made ocean crossings feel possible for ordinary folks. Nearly 2,000 hulls rolled out of the factory, and even more were finished in backyards by dreamers who wanted a boat that would not quit. That is why you will find Westsails scattered across every ocean, often with a retired couple aboard, moving slowly but surely, year after year. The market never caught up to its legend. There are always boats for sale, and prices stay reasonable because there are simply so many. If you want a boat built like a tank, with a track record of circumnavigations logged by real people, not just professionals, this is the classic bargain. One thing to check is the keel bolts. After decades at sea, a survey of those bolts is a must. But for safety per dollar, the Westsail 32 is the boat that started it all. Drop down to 30 feet, and the Alberg 30 makes a strong case that size is not everything when it comes to blue water dreams. Designed by Carl Alberg and launched between 1964 and 1976, this compact full-keel cruiser weighs in at about 11,000 pounds, heavy for her length and all the better for it. Around 500 hulls hit the water, many still quietly logging serious miles decades later. The Alberg 30 is famous among old-school sailors for its gentle motion and forgiving nature, especially when the sea gets rough. It is not just a coastal boat. Owner logs tell the story. In 2011, Anne Doyle sailed her Alberg 30 from Halifax to the Azores, proving that this design can handle the Atlantic with grace. The secret is a hull shape that rides the waves instead of fighting them, and a full keel that keeps her tracking true. Prices stay reasonable because these boats look old-fashioned to modern buyers, but the bones are solid. One thing to check before any passage is the shaft seals and the stuffing box. After years afloat, a little attention there goes a long way. For sailors who value comfort, reliability, and a proven ocean track record over flashy interiors, the Alberg 30 stands tall, no matter her size. Step aboard a Bristol 32 and you will feel something different under your feet. Built from 1974 to 1981, this Bruce King design was never meant to be a budget boat. Each hull, about 700 in total, was hand-laid by skilled workers at Bristol Yachts, back when a builder's reputation rode on every ounce of laminate. The result is a 32-foot, 12,000-pound cruiser with a full keel and a hull that surveyors still praise for its thickness and integrity, even after 4 decades. Today, these boats trade at prices that seem almost unfair, simply because the Bristol yard is long gone and most buyers chase flashier names. But behind the modest price tag is a level of craftsmanship you would pay dearly for in a modern yard. Gelcoat that still shines, deck hardware that is overbuilt, and a motion at sea that feels forgiving and solid. The only catch is many Bristols need their decks resealed and the cabin trunk recorked. An honest job, but one that rewards you with a bone-dry boat. For sailors who want real quality without the new boat markup, the Bristol 32 stands as the best deal on hand-laid strength you will find in this size range. Ted Brewer's Seawind 2 is the kind of boat you spot in anchorages from the Caribbean to the South Pacific, quietly racking up miles while flashier yachts come and go. Introduced in 1972 and built through 1985, the Seawind 2 measures 35 feet overall, with a full keel and a displacement just over 14,500 pounds. About 700 hulls left the Allied yard, and many are still out there, some with logbooks that read like atlases. Brewer designed the Seawind 2 for sailors who wanted to go far without fuss. His philosophy is simple: keep the hull heavy, the system simple, and the handling easy. That approach shows up in every line. Owners tell stories of 40,000-mile odysseys, some even pushing past 100,000 miles, often with just a couple or a very small crew aboard. It is not a fast boat, but it is forgiving, especially when the weather turns ugly. The full keel tracks straight, the motion is gentle, and the boat just keeps marching on. Prices stay lower than you would expect for a true Bluewater veteran. The Allied brand never had the marketing muscle of bigger names, so many buyers overlook these boats entirely. That is a mistake. The Seawind 2 earned its reputation the hard way, by crossing oceans, not sitting pretty at the dock. One thing to check: many of these boats have original engines that have seen decades of service. An engine refit is common, but the rest of the systems are so straightforward that even a first-time owner can keep her running. For a retiree or anyone dreaming of long, steady passages, the Seawind 2 offers one of the best cruise miles per dollar ratios you will find. It is a workhorse, honest, sturdy, and easier to maintain than most of its rivals. Brewer's design is not about flash, it is about getting you there and bringing you home. Pearson's 365 stands out as the boat that gave comfort a real seat at the Bluewater table. Designed by Sparkman and Stevens and built from 1971 to 1988, this 36.5-foot cruiser weighs in at around 16,000 pounds. Substantial enough to inspire confidence, but not so heavy that it feels like a chore to handle. More than 1,500 hulls slipped into the water during its run, which means there is always a good chance of finding one at a fair price. What sets the Pearson 365 apart is not just its numbers, it is the way ordinary couples have used it to chase big dreams. In 2009, a retired pair quietly cast off from Florida and sailed their Pearson 365 all the way to Greece, logging the journey in Bluewater Cruising Association records. No drama, just steady miles, simple maintenance, and the kind of motion that lets you sleep through a squall. The roomy cabin, deep cockpit, and straightforward systems make it a favorite for sailors in their 60s or 70s who want to go far without sacrificing comfort. One detail to check before any long passage: shaft alignment and the stuffing box. Decades at sea can nudge things out of line, but it is a fix that pays for itself in quiet, drip-free motoring. For anyone who thinks you must choose between real offshore pedigree and a boat you can actually live aboard, the Pearson 365 quietly proves you can have both. A truly proven Bluewater partner. Walk onto a Gulfstar 37, and the first thing that hits you isn't the hull shape or the rig, it's the sheer space. Built from 1974 to 1982, this 37-footer stretches a generous 12.5 feet wide with a displacement tipping toward 18,000 pounds. Nearly 900 hulls left the Florida factory, many destined for liveaboard life in the Caribbean or for charter fleets on both sides of the Atlantic. For years, Gulfstar was known as the builder that packed comfort and elbow room into boats regular people could actually afford. But here's the real shock. Despite all that space and a reputation for easy living, the Gulfstar 37 trades for less than half the price of a modern 37-foot boat. The reason is classic. The builder fell out of fashion, Gulfstar shut its doors decades ago, and the market never quite forgave the dated woodwork and homey lines. That is good news for anyone who wants to actually live aboard, not just weekend cruise. The big galley, a real head, and roomy sleeping quarters make this a floating apartment that is still Bluewater capable. Underneath the comfort, you'll find a full keel and a hull layup that is heavier than most boats built today. But there is one thing to check before you move in. Cabin sole rot is common. Years of charter use and leaky hatches can leave soft spots underfoot, so a thorough survey is a must. If you want a boat that feels like home and still has the bones to cross oceans, the Gulfstar 37 is the best comfort per dollar surprise on the list. Halberg-Rassy Monsun 31 is the kind of boat that earns a quiet nod from surveyors and old hands alike. Built in Sweden from 1981 to 1995, the Monsun 31 is a pure expression of Scandinavian overkill, with a thick solid fiberglass hull, no core to rot, and deck joints that could shame a commercial trawler. About 450 hulls left the Elos yard, each one weighing in at nearly 13,000 pounds, heavy for a 31-foot boat, and all the better for it. The long fin keel and skeg-hung rudder give the Monsun a steady, forgiving motion at sea. The sort of ride that lets you eat soup in a gale and sleep through a squall. What sets this boat apart is its reputation for longevity. Survey reports across the North Atlantic and Baltic consistently show low osmosis rates, even after decades afloat. In 2020, delivery crews logged multiple Monsun 31s, making the run from Sweden to Scotland, reporting tight decks and dry bilges all the way. Owners talk about hardware that outlasts trends and a hull that shrugs off hard knocks. The reason these boats trade cheap in the US is simple: scarcity and a lack of name recognition. Most buyers chase flashier brands, leaving the Monsun as a sleeper pick for those who know what matters. One thing to check is the original seacocks and through hull fittings. Many are stainless steel from the factory, but after 30+ years, a careful survey is wise. For sailors who want a boat that will outlive them, and maybe their kids too, the Halberg-Rassy Monsun 31 is Swedish steel in fiberglass form. You will not win races, but you will win peace of mind every time the wind pipes up. Step onto a Tayana 37 and you are stepping into a piece of blue water history. Designed by Robert Perry and launched in 1978, this 37-foot cutter carries the DNA of a true ocean cruiser, long, heavy, and built to shrug off punishment. With more than 1,300 hulls produced through 1990, the Tayana 37 was born during Taiwan's golden era of yacht building, when shipyards poured layer after layer of hand-laid fiberglass into every hull. The result? A displacement north of 18,000 pounds, a full keel that tracks straight for days, and a hull thickness that surveyors still marvel at today. What sets the Tayana apart is not just pedigree, it is the way these boats have quietly racked up ocean miles for decades. In 2017, the Richters completed a circumnavigation aboard their Tayana 37, logging storms, calms, and everything in between. Their log reads like a checklist of what matters: dry bilges, solid rigging, and a motion that lets you sleep even when the wind howls. Many owners report minimal osmosis even after 40 years afloat, a testament to the Taiwanese layup that has become legendary among surveyors. The market still undervalues these boats, thanks to old prejudices about Asian yards and the sheer number of hulls available. But for those who know, the Tayana 37 is a tank in disguise, a boat you can buy without a second mortgage, then point anywhere on the chart. One thing to check: the standing rigging and especially the keel bolts. After decades at sea, a thorough survey is worth every penny. For sailors who want real blue water muscle without the price tag, the Tayana 37 stands as the best laminate quality per dollar you will find, an unstoppable cruiser built for the long haul. Morgan's 382 is the kind of boat that quietly wins over skeptics. Launched in 1977 and built through 1985, it stretches 38 feet overall, with a beam just under 13 feet and a displacement pushing 20,000 pounds. About 700 hulls left the Florida yard, each one a solid chunk of fiberglass with a reputation for taking punishment and coming back for more. What sets the Morgan 382 apart is not just its size or comfort, it is the way it shrugs off real storms. In 2015, the crew of SV Meridian found themselves in the Pacific, caught by a rogue wave that rolled the boat nearly onto her beam ends. The wind howled, gear scattered, and for a few long seconds, the world turned sideways. But the Morgan righted herself, shook off the water, and kept going. No structural damage, no leaks, just a shaken crew and a story that still gets retold in anchorages from Mexico to Hawaii. That kind of self-righting ability is not an accident. The Morgan 382's modified full keel and hefty ballast give it the kind of stability that matters when the weather turns ugly. Owners talk about a hull that feels planted, a deck that stays dry, and a motion at sea that inspires confidence, especially for crews who might be out of their 20s and not looking for a thrill ride. Inside, the boat is all about practical comfort: a roomy saloon, a real galley, and berths you can actually sleep in while underway. It is the rare 38-footer that feels manageable for a couple, but big enough to live aboard for years. The market still undervalues the Morgan 382, mostly because the builder faded from the spotlight and the lines look classic, not flashy. But surveyors nod approvingly at the layup, and smart buyers know to check the engine and shaft. Many have seen decades of service and may need a refit. For anyone who wants proof that a cheap Bluewater boat can take a knockdown and keep going, the Morgan 382 is the real deal. One more surprise, you can usually find one for less than the price of a new SUV. But the next boat? That is the one with a legend forged in the world's most infamous storm. Contessa 32. The name alone carries weight in any marina where sailors talk about storms and survival, not just sunsets and cocktails. Launched in 1969 and built through 1991, this 32-foot sloop weighs in around 14,000 pounds. Heavy for her size, but every ounce earned. Designed by John Alden and Gerald Dalglish, the Contessa 32 was born for the North Atlantic, with a full keel that tracks straight in a gale and a hull shape that seems to slip through waves rather than fight them. But what sets the Contessa 32 apart is what happened in August 1979. During the infamous Fastnet race, a freak storm swept across the fleet. Winds topped force 11, waves towered, and 24 sailors lost their lives. Boats twice the size of the Contessa were abandoned or lost. Yet among the chaos, one Contessa 32 named Ascent finished the race. She was the only boat in her class to cross the line, righting herself after knockdowns that would have ended lesser boats. The rest of the Contessa fleet retired safely, most with little or no damage. That record is not a fluke, it is proof. When the sea turns hostile, this is the kind of boat that gives you a fighting chance. The design is simple and honest. Modest freeboard, low cabin trunk, and a rig that is easy to handle even when the wind pipes up. Owners talk about crossing oceans single-handed, braving Biscay, or rounding Cape Horn. James Kerr sailed his Contessa 32 GG around the world and survived multiple knockdowns off Cape Farewell and in the Southern Ocean. Each time, the boat came back up, shaken but unbroken. Prices today are a shock. You can find a solid Contessa 32 for less than the cost of a new SUV, often between $15,000 and $35,000. The reason is simple. Brokers overlook them and buyers chase newer, flashier hulls. But the bones are there. Most need new standing rigging and a careful survey of the chain plates. Decades of salt and strain take their toll. Get those right, and you own a legend. For older couples, solo sailors, or anyone who values seaworthiness over showmanship, the Contessa 32 is the ultimate giant slayer. Not the biggest on the list, but the one with the heaviest punch per dollar. When you are 1,000 miles from land and the sky turns black, this is the boat you want under you. That is why, after all these years and all these storms, the Contessa 32 stands at the very top of the list. Across all 10 boats, one pattern stands out. True Bluewater capability is not reserved for the wealthy. These classic hulls, built before accountants took the wheel, prove that solid craftsmanship and smart design outlast trends and price tags. Right now, adventure belongs to those who recognize value where others see only age. The sea does not care what you paid, only if your boat is ready. Which one would you trust when the weather turns?